What is going on, folks? Welcome to part two of our expansive interview with Ron Bruner Sr., legendary drummer from the LA scene who's played and recorded with Diana Ross, the Supremes, the Temptations, so many more, Gary Bartz, others. We're so elated to have him on the show. Continued from last week. If you haven't seen it, check out part one of his interview. Ron, thank you so much for continuing to be on the show.
We working our way through, bro.
We're making it through. And, a lot of people I'm sure are asking themselves in the spirit of secondhand talent, what is, your firsthand talent, I would say. And where does the secondhand talent aspect come in? Well, parenting is a factor, and you are, your three sons are all, award-winning artists in their own rights, and that doesn't just happen. And I look at the contrast between, my cousins and my brothers, and they were given a certain level of, push towards the music industry, so to speak, whereas my brothers kind of learned how to play on their own. Yet I think they're comparable in skill if they would pick up any given instrument. So it's common, though, between the two that what we did have from our parents was, they didn't necessarily push us to the arts, but they were cool with it.
Yeah.
And they understood that it was something that, we the older three of us in particular gravitated towards in a certain way. It kind of ran in the family. And though they didn't really push it very hard, they certainly didn't, disencourage it or anything like that. And I'm been curious to talk to you a little bit about how, you know, parenting has factored in, as the secondhand talent of, developing beyond a career, a family of illustrious musicians.
Well, yes. Getting married and procreation and kids and all that, and um, again, I didn't really have a father figure at home. But it's kind of like when I got married, I want to be there for my kids, whatever I have and whenever I have them and what have you. And when they pop out, they start coming, and then you're kind of like, okay. And all you know is you're a limited human man. You're a man, and it's like I want the best for this kid, whatever that might be. And please, if you don't mind, I'd like to go ahead and introduce my wife,
Oh,
who can
absolutely. Please, ladies and gentlemen,
come in.
welcome to the show, Pam Bruner. Thank you so much. I mean, absolutely. This is wonderful.
There you go. Yeah, she's available.
Hey, Pam, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. Welcome to Secondhand Talent.
Oh, hi. Nice to meet you.
So, real quick before we go on further, I gotta ask. We have a typical first question that I got to ask to Ron earlier, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. You know, we hadn't spoken prior to this. This is really our first time meeting. I'm so
Mhm.
curious, the first time you heard the term secondhand talent, what was your reaction to the phrase? What'd you
Secondhand
think it
talent.
could be?
Uh, I didn't relate that to us. I just secondhand talent. I didn't even now I'm like, what does that mean?
Oh,
Hey, you know what? I love it. I
What
love
is
it.
secondhand talent? I guess the secondhand talent would be the kids. We're the first hand.
well, the
Mm.
premise of the program happens to be shining the light on the people that support the talent. For instance,
Oh,
the
wait,
people that run the lights, the people that run the cameras, the people that set up the amplifiers, the people that open the club up, the people that set up the
oh, okay.
secondhand talent. And those people, the first-hand talent can't exist without those people.
We wouldn't. Well, I don't consider us a secondhand talent.
But on the parenting
Well,
level,
if I may interject, I'd love to bring this in. This is a quote from a February 2016 interview with Billboard that Ron did,
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
and this interview was about attending the Grammys with all three of your sons nominated
Yeah,
simultaneously.
I went to that award session.
And he had this to say about it, which really intrigued me. He said, of course I'm humbled, of course I'm proud, but it's like looking at a phenomenon. I don't take credit as far as being somebody that actually planned it or mapped it out for my kids. It was just let them enjoy the music and be good. I took them to their gigs, we talked about it, but they've been very instrumental in re-educating me. The other side of it is now I'm famous not just for being a musician, but for being their dad. And
Yes.
I bring that up because I think it's the quintessential secondhand talent. It's that support network, that freedom to follow whatever artistic proclivity your children may exhibit, be it in music and writing and in art, whatever, in mathematics, whatever the case may be, to recognize that and encourage it, I think is the exemplification of secondhand talent, because that's the foundation of where it starts.
Oh yeah, that's Mr. Bruner, and I don't know. I know he and the last thing he did with you guys, I think he was saying how his background in music, but it's really a long history in my family as musicians as well. So I did appreciate the fact that he was very instrumental in helping the kids with as being musicians, because at the time when they were little, his philosophy in educating them was to let them enjoy it. I was raised in a situation where my musical training was very strict and very rigid in the way I was raised as a musician. I started when I was 8. And so he did the way I was raised. I'm from Detroit. I had private lessons, very rigid lessons, and he wasn't for that as far as he was always saying let them enjoy it. And I'm so glad he took the upper hand in doing that, because it made music fun for them. And so I was so thankful for that, even to the point when I had my last child, which was at 40 years old. I was old as Methuselah. He stopped going on to, he made a decision to stop going on the road. It wouldn't have mattered to me, because I was already in agreement with him being, I married him, he was a musician. So he stopped going on the road, and he got the job at Disneyland to be in town, and he was hands-on with the boys. And he even made it clear that I was not to, they were never to be put on punishment, as far as like, I would like, they love their music so much. It's like, you can't punish them by saying they can't play their instruments. You punish them some, take the Nintendo away, but uh they can't be put on punishment as like, you can't play your instrument. That was off limits. And I'm glad he was there to give that kind of guidance, because they love their instrument, they love their music. And that was very important. So
That recognition, though, is, I think, a matter to highlight, and to even incorporate that understanding into punishment. As kids, obviously you need to discipline your children to get, when they misbehave, but to understand that, taking away this outlet for them that gives them joy and gives them an outlet for an expression of creativity, to me, I hear this, and I think, wow, that's A1, that's A1 parenting. And
yeah, that was A1 parenting. And I wouldn't have known to do that. I had no idea how to, only a man can make another man. And I was, and being a woman and having boys, my kids were calling me, I was from Detroit. One thing I could do is help you, help you be a thug. Because that's what you get. You're from Detroit, you kind of thug. My kids used to tell me, my mama was a thug, so, and I was, I had the guts. I guess I had the hustler mentality, but I didn't have the things that they would need to be a man, or and even to be a musician. Like I said, my upbringing was, it wasn't strict as a character in my character, but it was, my musical upbringing was very strict without support. And I didn't want to be a music major, even though I was a very good musician at the time, and into jazz very strongly, because, excuse the expression, I didn't want to compete with the white boys. And at the time, Rita Franklin used to get beat up, and she went through hell. My mother, I knew about what was going on with the people that were in the industry. So it's like, and I was in the industry, I was playing in bands, and I said, I'm not going to deal with this. So finally, I came out to California, and I married him, and he wind up having every dream that I ever had. He lived it. he was a buyer. He took on careers that and even my dream job was, my dream of dreams was going to Disneyland. I couldn't believe when he got a job at Disneyland. It was like, I can't believe this man is actually become everything I ever wanted to be.
Prince Charming. Thank you very much. Thank you.
No, no, no. That came later,
Oh, yeah.
but looking back on it, he actually has done everything and been everything I wanted to be, even when it comes to the children, because I I couldn't have taught them to be better person than that he could have.
So Ron, speak on that a little bit. What was it like, having, I mean, let's start obviously with your first son, Ron Jr. What was it like being a first-time parent and a lifelong musician
Mhm.
and recognizing that aptitude and kind of figuring out how how to create that path that your wife was just describing?
Well, I think it's interesting that he came out being a percussionist. Okay, and so the instant identification. Oh, you're like me. That, yeah, that's
Like,
and he was the first one now. Yeah, yeah, you're like me.
Yeah, he sure was.
So it's kind of, so then I knew the path that how I wound up on it. I knew the things that I fell into later that I should have gotten when I was younger.
Wow.
Had I known, the only difference between my mother and myself was I understood the why you sit down with two sticks, left, left, right, right. I understood why. My mother didn't understand why. So it was easy to kind of just put what they do with the horse, the racehorse, they put the little blinders on them just so you just see what's in front of you.
hmm.
That's kind of what I did. I just sat things in front of me. And
Yeah.
I think if you see, I sent a picture of him standing and playing with Pampers on with sticks. Since he was the only child at the time, pretty much, I kind of play more drumistic music,
Mm.
not trying to instruct him, just let it play, and he'd hear it, and and
Oh,
when he'd be sitting eating, and he's the toddler now, but he's putting his own food in his mouth, but music's playing, and all of a sudden the drummer would do something, he would.
no, I gotta tell you this story about when the drum machines came out. Now, I really was pretty, I was kind of scary for a long time. I just this whole lifestyle being married to him and music and church was a bit scary for a while. So there's around in, I don't know, I guess it was the early 80s when the drum machine came in and the music business was getting really strange where they didn't have musicians anymore. They were using drum machines. So anyway, Ron Jr. was playing along with the drum machines. And I said, stop that baby from, I said, those are machines. He should learn how to play like a machine. And my husband said to me, let him play. He said, let's see what's going to happen. And I was like, no, no. But anyway, he let him play anyway. And Ron Jr. started playing like a machine. So actually he became so good that he could match the machine. But I was concerned because he was not playing like a drummer. He was so impeccable in his timing. He was matching these drum machines. He practiced as a little child, as a little tiny child with drum machines. So drum machines, humans breathe. They take, if you look at the old recordings, you'll hear where stuff will like, it'll kind of get off time for a second because you got to breathe, it's human. But these drum machines, they're nonstop. They did not take a break. Drum machine it's a machine. But I remember because people would ask, how do you play like that? How did this little kid to play this well? I said his dad let him practice with machines. I was upset with about it. It took me years to get over my fear of all kind of crap because being a Christian, there was devils and there was sicknesses and things that came up. And for a while, it took me a while to like, I can't believe I'm married to this man and these kids and everything is just crazy. Even going to Lock High where he let them go. So much stuff was in the world. The gang members. See, I'm from Detroit was one thing. I could be a thug, but I didn't know how to deal with gangs and all this. I guess I did, but so when I got toughened up and I was able to deal with a lot of stuff, I was all right with the Lord.
Hmm. Yeah. Amen.
Him the night his mama was when his mama got healed. I remember the night his mama got healed. He was there, and I went and made friends with his mother, and we were really good friends. But his mother, the pastor laid hands on her and she started screaming and the whole place went crazy. And the whole place went crazy. I didn't meet him that night and I made friends with his mom. I was friends with her way before I met him. And I went because I just loved her. She was a nice little fat little lady. And she lived a lot. She lived at least about 17 more years after that because I remember I
I
prayed
think,
for her.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
I didn't know him at the time, but I knew his mother, and she was good friends with me until she found out we were gonna get married, and she hated me. But I love this man.
Stuff happens. Yeah.
But I
Stuff
met
happens.
his mother got healed that night, and she tore up the church, and I was already her friend.
Um, if I may get back to that
Oh, I'm sorry.
other situation about being that he was a percussionist and we do the same thing. Um, I didn't. I knew the main things I didn't get access to sonic uh, views of drums, if that makes any sense. In other
Oh,
words, all I was limited to just was on television at that time. My parents were not record collectors and all that kind of stuff. I was at the time I had kids. Yeah, I was a record collector at the time I had the kids and
he
all
was
that.
everything collector.
Yeah, so it was such joy just to be able to put this Billy Cobham record on and watch the little toddler have a fit. I just enjoy those little moments. Look at that. That's a drummer. That is a drummer.
We had a crazy life.
And so he progressed. I mean, he just kind of as a kid, and then my mother-in-law went. We our kids went to Yamaha Music School. I think I might
She
have
put
been.
him in school.
Yeah, yeah,
She put him
yeah.
in
She
school.
paid. Yes, grandma paid for them to go to Yamaha Music School.
She didn't want them to turn up like
So at
her.
age 4, Ronald was the first kid.
3.
I'm sorry, age 3. He was the first kid. 2 years later, Stephen, we got him in there, Yamaha Music School. It was about maybe, it was X amount of years. Jamil was born in 95, I think.
Right, she was dead by then.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
died in 89.
Yeah, so then, so I sent him myself. I did. But the thing was, it's like when we were talking about Steven, I think a little bit in our earlier conversation here, he just seemed to be a string player. He had the thing with string, he'd take sticks and act like he's playing a guitar. He had a little, he would tinker on piano because it was notes, but he just seemed to be that way. So Deborah was Deborah bought him an acoustic little it was a kid-sized guitar.
He had to be 11 months old. He was, yeah, 11 months old. He wasn't even 2 years old when he got
That's
that
true.
guitar.
And we have pictures of him. I think I sent you one. We have pictures of him in Pampers with this
Big
acoustic.
old guitar.
Yeah, and he is holding it, and it's just a joy to see that. So to my kids, I can imagine. Now here's the thing. Music was a common thing in the house. We didn't really talk about it unless you asked me a question. But music just there's instruments, there's more instruments,
We didn't have any furniture. We had
we
instruments.
had
We
instruments,
still ain't got no furniture that much.
but we have instruments.
The reason I let the baby when he wouldn't be home, and when he found out that Ronald Jr. was taking the drums out of the case, it's because I let Ronald do it because Ronald would the little bit of furniture we had, Ronald would just take pots or he'd take these drumsticks and he would be putting dents and everything. So I was like, when he got a hold of the drums at like 11 months old, I was like, I didn't care because he was already the little bit of furniture we had, which was just a wooden bench one time.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah.
And a table.
Yeah.
He had jacked them up. He had messed up the little furniture we had. So it's like he saw the drums go. I didn't stop him when he.
So now they're in Yamaha Music School, and now I credit Yamaha, and nowadays most schools like that they kind of teach along those lines. Music is fun.
Yeah, they were.
Music is fun, but by the same time you're having fun, you're being taught, but you don't really know that.
Yeah.
So Ronald went 4 years, and we thought Ronald was actually going to be a singer. He had a voice. He's to this day he has a voice like a bird, and you could sing something to him. He could hear a melody, and he can spit it right back at you.
And he's still very, very good.
Yeah, he's still a very good singer.
Remember when my mother died? This teacher told us and had him on. He was on TV in Detroit when he sang for the Christmas program. He sang on TV in Detroit,
Mhm.
we didn't know he could. I didn't know he could sing back then, but the teacher knew.
Yeah, yeah. So we thought that, and but he always, he was always a drummer, but he could do this. So yeah, again, I'm not trying to pigeonhole him. I'm just trying to figure out, okay, where are you going with this? He went 4 years to Yamaha Music School,
I had
and they wanted Yamaha, the Japanese. The president of that school came to me. She says, "Oh, the Japanese are taking interest in your child, and they well, this is how she said it.
yeah,
And she said what they would want to do. Would you be willing to allow him to be taken to Japan for special training?
as a child prodigy.
Now, this is a philosophy or viewpoint of mine, if you would. Okay, so prodigy training. Now, I was against family bands, let alone raising a prodigy.
Because
She said that to me. Specialized training. Now, she had a daughter that was a ballerina, ballerina young lady. She was a prodigy. And so, and her name was this teacher. Her name was Ann. And so she's all excited. This will be a feather in her cap as far as that division of the Yamaha school there in Westwood. And I just looked at her and I said, Ann, what earthly prodigy is any human good? So if you raise a person in a cocoon and you develop them, because at a certain point it becomes okay. Now they've accepted they are musician or singer or whatever they've accepted that. So now you put them in a cocoon and you intensify that training, but they don't even have much human experience.
this is the wisdom of God. I don't know how he figured this out.
Well,
Just when I think of the term prodigy,
go
right?
ahead.
Just the term itself. Now, I think the typical reaction, I think personally, hearing that from the director of a school, that's a quantity thing that you're banking on parents to hear the word prodigy and let that be the buzzword that lets them get, as you so well put the feather in their cap for that
Mhm.
school or whatever the case may be. The other side of that coin, so to speak, is that just as you were saying, is it the right decision to all of a sudden gear shift to intensive training in one parochial area? When I hear prodigy, I think one specific talent, a like a chess prodigy, for example, or
Yes.
a cellist, or a harpist. There are certainly prodigies, and there are people who have prodigy like abilities, certainly.
Mhm.
But to undergo what it takes to be renowned as a prodigy,
Yeah.
it's rigorous and
Yeah.
tough, and B,
Yeah.
the term carries with it a lot of weight. There's a lot of expectation then that becomes beholden upon you if you're a so-called prodigy.
Without mentioning names, there are many pop stars that we respect and love, and they are prodigies.
Oh,
Shh,
okay,
don't
okay.
say
I know I was
names.
gonna say my family stuff going on in my family. My mom used to
Okay,
say,
okay, okay. Um, without mentioning names,
No names
it's
needed.
obvious. Yeah, it's obvious that person's a prodigy. Their talent is just
off the wall.
beyond whatever. I mean, the things you come up with, the blah 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 blah, and you fumbled in life miserably.
Mm.
Now,
Mm.
I had such a great fumble because you didn't have the opportunity just to simply be normal,
Normal, yeah,
just
yeah.
simply play basketball, simply get in fights and get whooped and go back and whoop them or whatever. Go ahead. You didn't get a chance, you didn't get an opportunity to live what
Normal
we call normal,
relationships.
what we call normal. Being able, yeah, normal relationships, being able to, uh, anyway.
Well,
And the
it's
top,
something that you and I had mentioned last week in the first part of this interview about school being the place where we learn how to learn. You know, the whole point of school is, or one of the major points of school is learning socialization. And it's one of those things that we learn without, learning it from a textbook, so to speak, but by being around others and in an environment with like-minded and similarly aged individuals, you
Mhm.
are subconsciously learning social skills. And taking that away,
Mhm.
especially at crucial developmental phases,
Preach.
for a child, one of the things I'm seeing currently as an educator is the disruption, the real disruption in
Mhm.
education that COVID caused and the learning gaps that are becoming more and more apparent. And it's a very real thing that
Yeah.
once you have a period of isolation where you're no longer focused on your spectrum of goals, but rather on one thing in particular, just because the only way out is through,
Mhm.
you become more constricted in ways that are immeasurable.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So when I said that to her, she knew I was right, and all she could do was, I didn't slam the door on her. I've known this lady 4 years,
Mm.
and I'm just like, what prodigy is any earthly good? And she
Oh,
just kind of hung her head. Now, and I said to her, he's going to play basketball. He's going to wear Air Jordans until, I'm going to keep him normal. He is a prodigy, but we're not going to train him in that manner. We're just going to let him grow,
thank God.
you know.
Mhm.
And so, he came out okay. Yeah, Yamaha. Wait, well, no, I'm talking about a credit to Yamaha. Their goal is perfect pitch. So while you're going through the musical games that everybody tinkers with the piano. They start you on basic, they call it solfege, singing do, re, mi, fa, sol syllables.
Mm. Hmm.
So they're teaching you piano, you're learning these simple melodies, but it's fun and games, and you're learning to sing solfege. So I would watch the classes. I'm sitting there, I'm figuring it out. I'm like, wow, okay, that's awesome. And what they're doing, so now again, and then when Steven, so the last 2 years of Ronald was like Steven's first year, something like that. He was behind
It
him,
was
maybe
2 years.
2 years behind,
So
two
he
years
came
behind.
in around second year, Stephen's first year.
Okay. And so I didn't know my kids had perfect pitch.
I was
Stephen
gonna
had,
say I'm sorry to interrupt there, but my cousins that I mentioned earlier, the Moon City Masters, they have perfect pitch. And for those folks, when you said exactly, that was because there was an expression of confusion on my face because wasn't aware that perfect pitch was something that one could teach.
Well,
I
can't teach it, I don't think.
we're talking about first of all propensity toward music, whether that's
yeah,
singing
absolutely.
notes, so you got a propensity for it. So now it's just a matter of training response to vibrations.
So if
Mm,
It just vibrate.
so if they the way they taught solfege is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So they could play a note and he could say that's do. Or they can
hmm.
because he memorized the pitch.
The
I
scale, yeah.
memorized it, but even to this day, he can tell you what note because of the solfege teaching when he was
It's
3.
like it's like my brothers. Yep. I mean, it's incredible. It's that, and I couldn't imagine my brothers being any different than they are. And I'm, the whole reason that we're having this conversation is because I am incredibly grateful to my parents for giving us that freedom and not boxing us in. My mom, like I mentioned earlier, I don't know if it was on camera or not, offered my brother lessons. She wanted him to take lessons, and he was just, no, I want to figure it out by myself.
Mm.
And, you know, her letting off the gas and letting loose and just letting him flourish as a musician, you know,
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine if he had been shoehorned into lessons, if he would even still be playing. He did it for the love, and that's what I'm hearing a lot from you.
It varies with the child. I think, some
Oh,
children
certainly.
need the structure. I was the kind of child that needed all the structure I get, even though it was kind of intense. And it just so happens, even I think Jamil would need more structure too. He needs instruction a lot. But every child is different. I remember when I was playing for the symphony, and I remember the kids were all immersed in jazz, and they had came out of Yamaha, and I was thinking, boy, I thought I didn't think the kids thought what I did is important. But then when I got into the symphony and I took them, and we had this thing, they had a day of all the movies, the music from the movies. And I remember they were sitting there and I was thinking that they thought what I was doing so boring. But then they started playing the themes from Superman, and Steven just lit up. They realized mom plays good music. We were playing the themes from the movies. And from that day on, I had a different respect for me because I played music. I'm, the flute player in the symphony. So then that was the next level for something. They were about they were about 10 years old, 10 and 8 when they went to the symphony to hear me play. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, finally, they didn't think I was just, what I did was just, janky, because Dad had him listening to jazz stuff, but he hadn't listened to any classical music. And so that was that was important for me.
I did play Stravinsky. I played Stravinsky in the house. Yeah. Rite of Spring. I sure did.
You bought that for me.
No, I didn't.
You bought that.
I bought that because I liked it.
No, you bought that. What's that guy? The flute player. You bought that.
Oh, Hubert Laws?
Yeah, he did the Rite of Spring.
He did there was a jazz version, but there was the Stravinsky orchestral version.
Don't lie. No,
I'm not lying. No. The thing was, I played everything without discrimination.
I never. All right. So before we get to Stephen, I wanted to tell you a story about my son Jamil, my youngest son Jamil, who, when he was born, he looked like a spitting image of Mr. Bruner with the full head of hair. So when Jamil, when he first got here, he was real little. He used to go in front of the TV and he would memorize everything, all the words to, like, we used to watch this movie called The Little Sparrow.
Yeah.
Or no matter what he watched. And one of the things that we used to watch was a lot of Disney movies, because Ron had started working at Disney. So he had to be like less than 2 years old. But he would he'd say all the words. But I didn't know he was doing it at the time, because I just thought he was learning how to talk. And so he would go out on the porch. And so I remember seeing him doing this thing where he would jump on the wall. And I was like, what is he doing? He would jump on the wall and he would go and he'd come back down, and he had this little routine. And he was always, and I said, Jimmy, what are you doing? But he couldn't tell me what he was doing. Well, so one day I always sit on a monitor with the kids when they would watch TV, because, that's what you were supposed to do back then, make sure you were watching what they're doing. So I was watching all the stuff that he was watching. He kept watching this show, Little Sparrows, and all these Disney movies. So I saw what he was doing. He had been watching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So in the meantime, someone came over. Someone gave us a full-size accordion, beautiful accordion. And so we wanted to play it, but it was too big for him. So we got him a little toy accordion. So when he was jumping off the walls, then he got his accordion and he would jump on the wall and then be dancing. So I said, what the world is this? This guy's weird. But I didn't say it to him. And so then I saw what he was doing. In the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Jamil was being one of the dwarfs that had the accordion. He was mimicking the dance and the accordion thing.
That's right.
And so I was like, oh, that's what he's doing. And then someone had brought this full-size pearl $1,000 accordion to us. People used to give us instruments all the time. And so I said, Ron, Jamil is he's dancing. So we actually began to put it. We said, okay, we're gonna put him in accordion lessons, because he was and then we put him in dance school. By this time my mother had passed, and he started off in Yamaha school, but then after he came out of Yamaha school, because my mother had passed him, but we were able to pay for him and put him in Yamaha school, and then he went to Dave's accordion classes. Mm-hmm. Because he kept dancing with his accordion. So he went there for a couple of years. And then we had him in dance school, because he was, because I figured out what he was doing, because each child, we had to figure out, they showed us who they were. And, his brother, he had the drumsticks, he could play with his drum, he was playing the drums, but that's not something he was doing because it was available. He was just doing that because his brothers did that. And then one day he came and said, Mom, I'm going to tell you something. And he sang me the song. I almost cry when I think about it. And he would make up these songs. And it was Hush Little Lamb. And my husband said that God told him that Jamil composed songs. But I remember he would make up these songs and just sing them. And he would just strum the guitar and just sing a song, just random with words. It was like, wow. And he was like 3. So Jamil, once I figured out what this was, I said, he was nothing like his brothers. He was making up songs and he was dancing and playing this accordion. And he played that accordion so beautifully until he got in elementary school, and somebody told him that the accordion was corny. And then he said he didn't want to play no more.
Something like that. Yeah.
So then we put him. Then that's why we went let him go to piano. But
But that got him on keyboard.
that's how
He's
he.
functioning with keyboard. And I actually I had a Korg T T3 synthesizer.
Oh yeah.
And so once I saw, he's really into it, so you can play my chord, you know, and he began writing. Now, so he's the writer in the family. He plays well. He plays excellent. He's like them, but the stuff he does in terms of his creative ear with composing beats and songs and what have you. Whoa, I remember one occasion, not and see, bless his heart. One occasion,
He always see he doesn't want to be. He says he doesn't want to be like his brothers. You're not like your brothers. That's one of the things that I'm believing that he's stopped concerning himself like that because he's totally not like his brothers. He's trying not to be in their shadow. He's totally different from them.
but it would be, I would ask him, and he would. All my kids played in my bands over the years. When they were younger. You
That's
know,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, in '96. It was in '96. I started a '70s Miles Davis tribute band.
Hmm.
So, Miles is dead. I'll never get the gig, so I'll do it myself. Doggone it. And Stephen was the bass player. Stephen was probably ninth grade or something like that, somewhere around there. And he played well.
Hmm.
Then there was a period of time where we would do double drums. Ronald and I would both play drum. We have two drum sets set up. He would play the sit down kit, and then I had a stand up drum set. They call it a cocktail kit. And so I would play that. So and Stephen was basically, she would play flute with us. Um, and then Jamil, we worked it in because in dance school, he was an excellent tap dancer.
Oh man.
So we worked out, I'm just working it, I mean, it's not a family
Yeah.
band, not a family band,
It wasn't a
but it's
family
family,
band.
but it's not a family band. And so we worked out where he would tap dance. I had this little poetic
Mm.
moment do. And so I'm reciting some poetry. I'm reciting the 23rd Psalm, and then there was a poem that was on a Miles record. I forget the guy's name, Paul Robeson or someone. They were reciting it, someone. And so then I step aside, and I'm playing an African djembe, and Jamil starts tap dancing, and he's ripping it. So we were having, again, music's fun.
Let me tell you something. One time the kids were in jazz band in junior high, and Jamil was like 4, 5, and so we were going to pick them up from the Watts Festival. Reggie Andrews had the jazz band, and my Ron and Steve were in it. They were in junior high, so we're waiting for them to get finished. And they're going to do the last song. So then Reggie and Mike, I'm with Jamil. We're coming from church, and were you there? I don't think you were there. Were you there that
What
day?
happened? What happened?
Well, Reggie Andrews, he says, okay, we're about to do the last song because I was there to pick up the kid, Ron and Steven. He said, but we have a special guest tonight. I want to introduce the Stolen Moments, and we're going to have a special guest tonight. And so they started the band. He said, I just want to introduce Jamil Bruner. And I'm like, he's standing next to me. So Jamil walks up on the stage and does a tap dance solo to Stolen Moments. I'm like, so after the show,
Whoa.
no, this is not this. I got another one for you. So I was like, after the show, I said, Reggie, what? He said, Jamil stood down at the bottom of the stage. He's standing next to me now. I don't even know this is going on. And he's pointing at Reggie saying to look at his feet. And he's like, let me come up. Let me do this. He's 5. Let me do it. Tell Reggie, I'm the dancer. Bring me up, bring me up. So, and I right next to me, I don't even know he's doing it silently because he knows I was like, he got Reggie's eye and told Reggie, let me up, let me up, let me come
Huh.
there. So Reggie brings him up for the last dance, and he does a solo on Stolen Moments, and he's like slide. Oh, and the people just go crazy. Now that's one time. One time we had to take him because I'm gonna say it. Hold on. We went to see what's the name of that group?
Oh.
Les Lumians and Zap Mama.
Oh, yeah.
We weren't even supposed to take him in there. Somehow I have so much favor. God is give me so much favor because anyway, the Lord told me to have the Lord told me when I had a husband, he said he wanted me to have children. So I told me, you got to help me. So the Lord helped me with my children. So anyway, that's another story. So I have favor. God would help me with my children. We took our kids places that nobody would let kids in, but they would let our kids in. So we went to that, what's the name of that place?
And
Avalon.
the Avalon in Hollywood.
We
Yeah.
had they weren't supposed to have children in there, but we went there without the tickets and they let us bring Jamil in there. What is he, 5 years old, 6 years old? He might be about 5 or 6.
Something like that.
When the first Matrix came, the first Matrix movie came out. So they let us in there, but you're not supposed to have kids in there. So we had standing room only tickets. So there Zap Mama and Les Nubians were playing. So we're in the standing room only. The other people got seats. So we're watching the show. And so I told my husband, I said, I had to go to the bathroom. So he's standing up there with Jamil.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the bathroom. So when I came out of the bathroom, the place was going crazy. And so I went because everybody had stood up and we're all in front. So I said, what's going on? And the lady said, oh, there's this little kid. She said, there's this little kid that's tearing up the show and he's doing the Matrix.
Huh.
Went all the way back. When the Matrix was you do, you go all the way back.
Uh-huh. Dude.
And, yeah, and you
Oh.
just catch a pose. And she said, there's a little kid tearing up the place. And I knew there was no other kids but mine.
Huh.
And Jimmy and I found out what happened. He asked the lady, how did he get on stage?
We were like elbows on the stage. We're on the stage, and they're right there. And so they went to like a instrumental moment in the song, and so Jamil just got her attention, and so she said, "Oh, come on," and he just went,
He was 5 years old.
I
he
mean,
went.
as parents, there can't be any better feeling than watching that little bird fly and
Oh
seeing
yeah,
them
yeah,
flourish. I mean, in
yeah,
front of a crowd, no less. I
yeah.
mean,
He could have given a rip about the crowd. This. He was just gone. And I mean,
man.
they let him finish, and he came back to me. I lifted him back off the stage, and they kept it was Joe, But he's so that yeah. So these kids, our kids, there's all these moments of things similar to that, whereas you recognize this is where they're heading.
We didn't push them.
No, we did. No, we did not make them. Again, music stayed fun. I didn't punish you with music. I didn't make you. And here's a key thing too. I want to mention this. They were in like what, like the sixth and fifth grade at the time. I think that's right. It might have been seventh and fifth grade, 2 years apart. Yeah. So Ronald's in the seventh grade, Steven's in the fifth grade. Stephen at that time was the violin player. He was a violin player at the time in the string quartet that they had at school.
The 32nd Street School.
32nd Street, USC 32nd Street School of Performing Arts. And then Ronald they had a jazz band, and Ronald was the drummer. So I remember they had a specialized, it was a middle school jazz concert. So the middle schools in the area that had jazz bands, they came and did this. And the end of the performance was going to be the Washington Prep High School jazz band. The director was a guy named Fernando Pullen. I knew him. He's a trumpet player. We played gigs together. So the other bands, the school bands played. And then the USC 32nd Street School Band, they played, did quite well. Ronald took solo, did great. So now it's time for the Washington High School Prep Band. They come out. Now, mind you, I'm still nurturing young talents, and I'm trying to I'm making decisions as we grow, and I see different things blossom, and how am I going to handle this? So the Washington Prep Band came out. No one was making noise. There was no laughter. It was serious. They got ties on. And they immediately came out with their music stands. They set up, they sat down. No one's laughing, giggling, or nothing. That got my attention. Like, oh, okay, that's unique. And so Fernando, he stood up there. They already knew what they were going to play, so they had their music setting on the stands to play that song. And so literally, Fernando does one of these kind of moves. Everybody's snap to silence. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. That was the tempo. That was the tempo. So they played a song. I recognized that it was by Thad Jones and Mel Lewis. That's a famous jazz band in Chicago back in the 60s. I knew that's who wrote the song. I didn't know the name of it. The song it's a blistering tempo. The drummer held the tempo. He's a high school guy now. He held the tempo. They played the melody. They played the bridge. They took solos. They did the shout chorus. Then they ended the song. My mouth is hanging open. I know adults that can't do that. So they played maybe two, maybe three pieces of music. At the end of their performance, they let the event out. I walk up on the stage. I know Fernando, and I know my mouth was hanging open. First thing came out of his mouth was, Ron, they don't know this is hard. It was like it was like God talking to me out of his mouth because I'm trying to figure out the next move with my kids. Ron, they don't know this is hard. And then he said, Ron, they got to feel like it's their own idea and not yours. So that day, I repented and I took a different position. You can play music if you want to because they're older now. They want to play basketball. They want to do these things that their peer groups and peers are doing. Oh, because it would be very easy to get music into that grind. You got to practice. Okay, now
Absolutely.
you're better now, so you got to practice. You got to spend at least 2 hours. That's not the way you hold the sticks, or whatever. Things that the most obvious mistakes that musical parents make. I know plenty. The guys I work with at Disney, they got kids. Ron, how'd you get your kids to play?
Everybody started. We couldn't go to the Nam without people. Sugarfoot. Everybody was asking us, how do you be everywhere we went, everywhere, all kind of famous people were asking us to help them with their children. And I was like, you gotta talk to my husband. Because I'm the thug of the family. I don't know.
Yeah. So I took a whole different position. And so I didn't see them. So I'm not making sure you practice. I'm not making sure, I'm gonna go the opposite direction. You practice if you want to.
They
So
practice all the
so one
time.
and they play it all the time. So one day, this is a classic one. I think Stephen was he was in the sixth grade by then, I think. And so I came home. We live in an upstairs apartment. And
He went
so
in the sixth. I know what you're talking about.
was it fifth grade? What grade was he
Yes,
in?
is in fifth.
Fifth grade. So the entrance to our apartment was downstairs. So I opened that door and there's a set of stairs, but I'm in my apartment, but I just have to go upstairs to get to the floor. And so I close the door and I'm walking up the stairs and I hear White Room playing
Mhm.
my Cream album. I hear Cream. She's not here. She's not playing. I know she don't even like that stuff. My wife's not doing it. So I'm like, what's going on? So I'm going up the steps, and I get to near to the stereo was in our bedroom at that time. And so I get to the bedroom door and so I hear Steven playing the bass along with Jack Bruce and
Oh.
ripping Jack a new one. And I froze. I don't want the floor to creak because he'll stop.
Yeah.
Oh, Jack, So I just stood there. I'm overwhelmed. I get a little emotional too. I'm overwhelmed. I didn't even know but I played all this stuff in the house. I knew you heard it, but you picked that song,
Yeah.
and he was just going at it, man. So when the song ended, I stuck my head in the door. Hey, man. And he starts apologizing. Oh, Dad, I'm sorry. I was like, no, no, no. I'm gonna go in the kitchen and get some coffee. Go ahead, man. I'm cool. Go ahead.
He didn't hear him playing Jackal Pot Stories
Oh, and
early.
Jacob was,
What's that thing? He used to play that when he was real young. I was like, what are you
a
playing?
portrait of Tracy.
I used to say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Wow.
That is, and so he was little, he was young.
He played that real young. I remember hearing that. And I was like, what is that,
What
Stephen?
he did, because I would take my kids to my gigs just to see what daddy does. And this is how daddy behaves. And this is
Yeah.
dad's and blah blah blah. And so every bass player, and Stephen he would like take his bass a lot of times. He would just take his bass. I didn't stop him. While we were playing, he would be in the back there just playing along or
Hmm.
whatever. Every bass player, he would walk up to them, and most of my coworkers, they knew my kids. Like Harvey Estrada was a bass player. So he's Mr. Estrada. Hey, Steven, do you know a portrait of Tracy? Yeah, I know a little bit. So everybody knows a piece of that song.
Hmm.
Harvey showed him what he knew. Gerald Brown showed him what he
I was his
knew.
godfather.
And so eventually he was able to play the entire song just based off him asking people, well, how's that part go? He would memorize it, lock it in. And I think one of the first recordings he did,
Yeah, it was a version of
it
Portrait of
was yeah,
Tracy.
it was a remixed version of Portrait of Tracy. He opened the song up with that bling ding ding boom 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 bling ding
That
bling.
that that George Duke thing.
Which one? Which one?
Love, something about love, da, 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 da. It's on
Oh, okay.
Apocalypse.
Apocalypse.
The
Okay.
first album he did, it had it
Oh, he did the George Duke too. He actually
yeah,
did a cover of the
yeah,
song.
and I named the album. I told Stephen, he was he was going to do the album. I said, this sounds like death. And he said, what? I said, you should name it Apocalypse. And he did.
Yeah,
The
Man.
Golden Age of Apocalypse was the first album.
and so back to Jamil.
Oh,
So Jamil was a bundle of,
a lot.
giftedness. Okay. And I've seen him. I remember one instance where he played um, stop me if I told you this before. It was an LA high school honors band. Jazz, it was a high school jazz band. And so they collected the best students in the district and formed this high profile jazz group. And the only prerequisite was you had to keep your grade point average up. So I think I took him to his second, or I didn't take him to his first rehearsal.
I don't know what you're talking about. Tell me.
Okay, well, so I took him to the rehearsal, and you know, I mean, actually, it was two. So the drummer and my son were African Americans, and the rest of them were Caucasians, and so they launch into a piece of music. I don't know what it was. This is my first time at this rehearsal, but I can tell these guys are cream of the crop of high school. I didn't really know how my kid was going to do. I didn't. Everything was kind of a surprise to
Is that
me.
Jamil? You talking about
Jamil,
Jamil?
Jamil,
Okay.
we're talking about Jamil. So they start the song. They're playing the song.
Oh,
I know that Jamil wasn't the greatest. He wasn't a read. He wasn't into reading, but he could look at a piece of paper and discern it's probably going to go in this direction. So he would look at the chord changes, chord symbols, and yeah, okay. They started playing. They played the melody, they played the bridge, they played the melody, then they went to solos. He started the piano solo. It distracted everybody.
Hmm.
I'm like,
what do you mean distracted?
hear me out. It was so interesting. And he was going, and it was so interesting. The horn players got lost on the music. They lost their place. They were listening. Everybody
Wow.
froze and like, what? Because it's like you can't be serious. He started just whine. He was just creating. And so the director was a gentleman named J.B. Dias. He stopped the band. The first thing he said was, Jamil, I apologize. That was going someplace so interesting, but I have to correct the trumpets because they missed their cue.
Huh.
Yeah. But the whole room is like, what the? But it was obvious there's a master in the room.
Yeah.
Oh,
You see what I'm saying? It was like, you didn't expect that to come from this little ninth grade guy. You didn't expect that. And he's not even,
he hears stuff weird. He hears stuff beautiful. He played for my friend's funeral, and he played Amazing Grace, but he took a whole the whole verse of it. And my friends from Michigan, they said that was really that was really interesting. He said they were talking about the solo Amazing Grace because I played the melody, and then we played together two verses, and I said, Jamil, just keep playing, because people were going past her, going to start viewing the body. But Jamil played something so beautiful, but it was strange. It was just like hauntingly, strangely beautiful. He played the song, but he played it. I can't explain how to say, but it was just hauntingly beautiful. The chord changes he went, but it was Amazing Grace. But it wasn't the melody; it was the chords within. And my friends in Michigan, these jazz Michigan folk they know they jazz, and they know that, and it's like, and I got they called me, Pam, your son, that was interesting. That was very different. That was interesting, and they weren't saying it in a negative way. It was like he hears stuff like I like Stephen calls him space cadet. But he said he's the space cadet because that's what
so he, so we all recognize he's the writer. He can play the keys. He can, he can play, he can improv, he can play jazz, he can play all these different forms. But when he starts writing things, it's like
and he's so sensitive. He takes everything so personal. So you kind of, if you say, you can't say anything negative because it's like it'll stop.
Yeah,
That
yeah, he'll stop. Just that's just now that's tied to something else. It's tied to I don't want to be like my brothers. It's tied to something else. If you follow me,
Hmm.
he is what he is. But okay, these two guys are successful. He's played with Thundercat a few times.
he's
It's like
beautiful,
here's your throne, son. Here, he's there. Your brothers. Oh, them. I don't want. He doesn't want to do anything his brothers are involved in.
but
It's weird.
You know what? As the oldest of six with four other brothers, I entirely get that. And I gotta ask, where you're at right now with this vantage point of, your three sons, all these interesting stories leave it no wonder or surprise to me as to why or how they're successful as they are. How do you feel today as you watch them flourish, and continue to grow in these new environments?
You should see my T-shirt collection. Woo! I got Thundercat T-shirts. Woo! I got jumpsuits, man. I mean, I was woo. This is the band that Jamil was in. Yeah.
Oh, that's
that's what
from
he's
the
done
internet,
it
right? The
for.
Odd Future. Yeah. From the
Yeah, yeah,
Ra.
right. So
Yeah, that's incredible.
they just sent that to him.
Now, you want to know how we feel now? Remember
Yeah.
the remember the story I told you before I got married, and I said I didn't want to have any children. I see he has a story about his mama dancing. My story is about me and the Lord. I ain't having no kids. I ain't getting married. Well, if I do get married, I said, Lord, I'll be your servant, but I don't care if I don't get married or don't have any kids. In fact, I don't want any kids because I thought I would always be a bad wife and a bad mama because I was back in Detroit. I was a thug. So the Lord bargained with me. He didn't bargain with me. He said if I told him I'll have some kids, but you have to help me. So he told me he would help me. This is the truth. So that was okay, I'll do it. So that's the only reason I got married. So I had these kids because the Lord bargained with me. So right now, no matter how things look, I've always said, okay, you're gonna help me with it. So no, so that's where I'm at right now. Whatever's going on with my kids, even I didn't give them to the Lord. I wish we're hands-on parents, but that's why we are what we are because he said he'd help, so he's still helping.
I would like to add to that. In light of your question, now they're all adults now,
Yeah,
right? So Ronald is 41, Stephen is 39, and Jamil is
30,
30.
95. He'll be 30. He'll be
He'll
30.
be 30 next year.
Yeah, he's born
Yeah,
95.
so he's 29 right now. So these are adults now. So now it's about management. We don't manage our kids,
Can't manage them. They grown.
but yeah, and they all live in their separate worlds. Ronald has played with all of my heroes. Darn kid.
That's
But
hilarious.
I've met all my heroes because of him. You know, and I'm grateful for that. People I never thought I would meet.
Let me see.
I did. We'll talk about me some other time. Um, Same thing with Steven. Steven was really the first one to actually. Ronald was the drumming star. Steven became the pop star. You know, and his whole thing was you get the whole package, jazz in pop music. So you go to one of these festivals they have. We just went to go see him last 2 weeks ago in Vegas. It's a pop festival, but he's doing fusion the first four songs. He's all over the place. I mean, the band's a great band. They've been playing together for years, and then he delivers his pop tunes. But he has grown to that. Everybody wants him on their records.
And let me say
Yeah.
this about Steve. Even every time, if you talk to Steven about where he gets his style from, he always says, I get it from my mom. He's got this color, his hair has been different colors. That's he's my dream. I mean, as far as him, everything, the whole costumes and stuff, that was me as a child too. I was always making doll clothes and stuff. Steven is like, if he reminds me of myself, the way he dresses, I used to just eccentric. That's that's Steven. Ron Jr. is the thug me. Before I got, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
When Ron Jr. You ever hear crazy stories about Ron Jr.? That's me. That's how I came out of Detroit, the thug. But I'm not a thug. Even though I'm a pastor's wife. Praise the Lord.
So management. So now we're dealing with life, managing life. We're not dealing with managing music and your careers or anything. But again,
Character.
once you're an artist like that, and the world has you on a pedestal, okay, everything is coming at you.
So you gotta live your life right.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, that's the truth of what needs to happen. But
They're working on it.
I get all these I get phone calls 2 o'clock in the morning. I get, whatever.
They're working on it.
And so, Dad. Okay, what happened? Okay, all right. You might not want to do that. This is a suggestion. So we're not kind of in that phase of life. They're doing well, but
They're developing their character.
now, and here's the thing too. I kept them as normal as long as I could. You
Listen,
know,
the world's going to happen at some point or another, and that's
exactly,
a simple fact.
Yeah, they
And I
gotta
think
walk it themselves. They gotta walk it.
exactly.
absolutely, absolutely. But taking the approach of, hey, things are going to happen, and the best I can do is guide them in the best way that I know how. I think that's the best way to embrace that and to have that outlook. I think is
There it is.
a testament to your parenthood and to the reason for your kids' success continued before, now, and coming up.
And you know what else? One thing I'm gonna say about Jamil, I used to win. I just recently won a dance contest. Jamil is the epitome of me. I used to win dance contests. I won hot pants contest. Just recently, was last year I won a dance contest?
At the Vegas?
Yeah.
Yeah, last year.
70 years old. You want to see me? Jamil gets that dancing gift from me and my family. We can dance. Everybody, even the crazy ones, we can really dance. That's a gift. That's a gift, and that runs in my family, dancing as well as music. It's
I
hilarious.
I was just gonna say, I think I speak for the world when I say that we're grateful for the gifts of music that your family has brought us. I mean, it's a gift that has given and gives and continues to keep on giving. And I am just very much looking forward to seeing what develops in the future for Ron Jr., for Steven, for Jamil. Hope you guys are watching this. In the meantime, we're about out of time for part two of this episode. Pam, Ron, thank you guys so much for spending this time with us. This has been another episode of Secondhand Talent, and we will see you next Wednesday.
Yes. Cool.
And that's a
Stop.
podcast. Yeah.
Brumbo.
All
And
right. Yeah.
we did it through technical difficulties.